In recent years, companies have promised to deliver hydrogen engines, claiming it is the fuel of the future.
There's a rumor swirling around the auto industry that could completely change the game. You know, electric cars, right? Those cool, quiet ones that everyone says are the future? Well, it looks like their future might not be as long as we thought. Toyota CEO just announced that the Japanese company is set to release a water-powered engine. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, yeah, right, like we're going to be filling our cars at a water fountain, stick with me. This isn't some wild idea made in a backyard. Of course, there are still a ton of questions. How exactly would a water-powered engine work? Would it be as efficient and powerful as gasoline or electric engines? Is this the stuff of science fiction, or the dawn of a new era in driving? Join us as we answer all these questions and more. Toyota's recent briefing. Toyota recently had a tech briefing in Japan where Hiroki Nakajima, their top tech expert, shared some big plans for the future. This came after a previous announcement from their former CEO, Akio Toyoda. Nakajima talked about some cool new ideas that Toyota is working on. The main goal? Changing how cars are made and used. Nakajima wasn't the only one talking about this. He was joined by two other leaders, Tako Kado, who's in charge of Toyota's electric vehicle efforts, and Mitsumasa Yamagata, who's leading the production of hydrogen-powered cars at a new factory. Now, while China is leading in the electric vehicle world and the United States is pushing hard in that area too, Japan is surprising everyone with some new engine designs that are turning heads in the industry. Basically, Toyota is setting up a big plan to stay competitive around the world, blending what they're good at with new eco-friendly tech to shape the future of transportation. They're already known for eco-friendly cars like the hydrogen-powered Mirai and their hydrogen three-cylinder engines. But this new engine, it's something else entirely. The water engine. Now, what exactly makes this new engine special? It's pretty simple. Unlike regular engines that release harmful stuff into the air, these new engines in Japan only give off water vapor. That's right, just water. It's a huge step for the environment, and the best part is that they still use the basic idea of a combustion engine, just in a much cleaner way. Japan is really leading the charge in this transportation revolution with this kind of tech. Toyota is one of the big names in this movement. They've been doing a lot of research on how to use hydrocarbons in a cleaner way and have invested tons of money into fuel cell technology. Instead of using gasoline, these cells use hydrogen to power cars. This puts Toyota in a great spot to be a leader in creating environmentally friendly vehicles. Toyota has already shown its dedication to hydrogen tech with lots of patents and cars like the Mirai, which runs on hydrogen. Their early work in this field makes them a top player in sustainable transportation. A big part of Toyota's green push is improving hydrogen fuel cell systems, which create electricity from hydrogen and oxygen. It's kind of like the ammonia engine, another clean energy option. The best thing about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles is that they barely affect the environment. These cars don't produce any harmful emissions, just pure water vapor. That's a huge difference compared to regular engines, which release pollutants and greenhouse gases. This makes hydrogen fuel cell vehicles super important in fighting air pollution and climate change. So, how does this tech actually work? Well, Toyota has been working on hydrogen fuel cell technology since the early 1990s, and it powers cars like the Toyota Mirai, which was the first hydrogen fuel cell vehicle to be mass-produced and sold commercially. The key to this technology is a chemical reaction between hydrogen and oxygen, which generates electricity to run the car. This happens through something called proton exchange membrane, PEM, technology, where hydrogen and oxygen react to produce electrical energy. Here's the breakdown. Toyota's cars store hydrogen in high-pressure tanks, and they pull oxygen from the air around them. Thanks to PEM technology, these two elements combine in a clean reaction that creates electricity. This electricity powers the electric motor in the car, letting it run without any harmful emissions, just water vapor. So, unlike traditional gas engines that pollute the air, these cars are a zero-emission solution. Another important part of Toyota's hydrogen system is something called an electrolyzer. This device helps break water down into hydrogen and oxygen through electrolysis. Water is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, and when you add electricity, the electrolyzer splits them up. The hydrogen becomes fuel for the car, and the process is safe, efficient, and doesn't need much energy. Here's how the electrolysis works. 2 special metal pieces called electrodes are placed in the water. When electricity flows through them, they break the water molecules apart. The hydrogen atoms head toward the negative electrode, called the cathode, while the oxygen atoms go to the positive electrode, called the anode. This process is super efficient and doesn't produce any dangerous byproducts. All you get from the electrolyzer is hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen is then used as fuel for the motor, making it a clean and reliable energy source. One of the coolest things about Toyota's system is that it doesn't need a huge, heavy tank to store hydrogen. Instead, the electrolyzer can make hydrogen whenever it's needed, which makes the motor lighter and more efficient. This on-demand hydrogen production boosts the car's performance and range. To make the most out of hydrogen fuel, Toyota has made some changes to the engine. They've adjusted the fuel injectors to spray the hydrogen fuel properly, and they've also strengthened parts like the engine block and cylinder head to handle the high pressure from the hydrogen, using hydrogen as fuel. Using hydrogen as fuel is pretty cool. The hydrogen that an electrolyzer makes can be used directly to run a motor. One of the best parts of this system is that it gets rid of the need for big, heavy hydrogen storage tanks. Since the electrolyzer makes hydrogen when it's needed, you don't have to store it beforehand. This makes the motor lighter and more efficient. To use hydrogen's energy properly, the motor needs some changes. The fuel injection system, which sends fuel into the engine, is especially important. Hydrogen acts differently than regular fuels like gasoline or diesel, so the fuel injectors have to be specially designed to deliver the right amount of hydrogen at the right time. Other parts of the engine need to be updated too. The engine block and cylinder head have to be made stronger to handle the higher pressures that come with burning hydrogen. Plus, the motor needs special valves and spark plugs to make sure it works safely and efficiently. Using hydrogen has huge environmental benefits. Hydrogen-powered motors basically produce no emissions, which is a big improvement compared to normal engines that burn fossil fuels. These motors don't give off carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides, or any particulate matter, which are all harmful to the environment and to people's health. Another awesome thing about hydrogen is that it can be made from renewable energy sources like solar, wind, or hydropower. So by producing hydrogen alongside renewable energy, we can create a clean and sustainable way of getting around. This would help cut down on greenhouse gas emissions and lower our reliance on fossil fuels. Even though the technology is still developing, hydrogen-powered motors have the potential to totally change the car industry. As more research happens, we can expect motors that are more efficient, perform better, and are cheaper to make, bringing us closer to a future with clean, renewable energy. Now, what are the advantages of this engine? Practical and economical advantages. The practical and economic advantages of this water-powered motor are pretty amazing, especially when compared to the engines we're used to today. Let's start with one of the biggest perks. It uses water as its only fuel. That's a huge shift from traditional engines which need gasoline or diesel to run. As we know, those fuels aren't cheap, and they come with a lot of baggage, like pollution and environmental harm. But with this motor, all you need is water, which is not only way more affordable, but also easy to find just about anywhere. You wouldn't have to worry about frequent trips to the gas station or spending a fortune on fuel, which makes the whole process of keeping your motor running a lot more convenient and stress-free. Now think about the environmental impact. Traditional engines rely on fossil fuels, which we know are bad news for the planet. Getting oil out of the ground involves drilling, which can mess up ecosystems, cause oil spills, and release harmful gases into the air. When you switch to a motor that uses water, you're cutting out all of that damage. You don't need to extract oil, and there's no risk of spills that could destroy wildlife and landscapes. This motor doesn't just make things simpler for you, it's actually a step forward for the environment too. Plus, it doesn't pump out harmful emissions like carbon dioxide or nitrogen oxides, which are some of the main culprits behind air pollution and climate change. Another cool thing about this motor is that it can help reduce the need for fossil fuels in other industries. Right now, industries like aviation and heavy machinery are major consumers of oil, and the transportation sector is one of the biggest users of fossil fuels. But if we can reduce how much gasoline and diesel we use for things like cars and trucks, it lightens the load on those industries as well. It's all connected, right? Cutting down on fossil fuel use in one area helps us lessen the overall demand, and that's crucial in the fight against climate change. If more people start using water-powered motors, it could have a ripple effect, pushing other industries to make similar changes toward cleaner energy. But the benefits don't stop there. Another big plus with this motor is that it helps reduce the demand for rare metals. You've probably heard how a lot of our modern technologies rely on rare metals, like the ones found in electronics and renewable energy systems. The problem is, mining for these metals is really tough on the environment. It can lead to things like soil erosion, water contamination, and even air pollution. The mining process itself is also risky, not just for the environment, but for the communities that live near the mines. People in those areas often suffer from health issues because of the dangerous chemicals and dust released during mining. So by adopting motors like this one, which don't rely as heavily on rare metals, we are actually helping to reduce the harm caused by mining. It's another step toward protecting both the planet and people's health. Now, when we compare this motor to other hydrogen-based technologies like hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, FCEVs, there's another practical advantage: safety and ease of use. Hydrogen as a fuel is great, but it comes with some challenges. Because it's a gas, storing hydrogen is tricky. It needs to be kept in special high-pressure tanks, which are not only heavy and expensive, but can also leak, creating a potential safety risk. This makes the whole process of using hydrogen a bit more complicated and costly. But water? Water is a liquid. It's much easier to store, and it doesn't need any of those high-pressure tanks or special safety measures. You can just store it in a regular tank without worrying about leaks or explosions, making the whole system safer and more practical. This advantage means that the water-powered motor could be used in all kinds of vehicles, from small cars to big trucks, and even in power plants. The flexibility it offers opens up a lot of possibilities for different industries and types of transportation. When you add all this up, the water-powered motor isn't just a neat idea, it's something that could really change the way we think about energy and transportation. It's more affordable because water is cheaper than fossil fuels. It's better for the environment because it doesn't involve harmful extraction processes or produce dangerous emissions. And it's safer and easier to use than some of the alternative technologies we've seen so far. As this technology develops, we could see it play a big role in creating a cleaner, more sustainable future, not just for cars, but for industries across the board. Now, how does this compare to other engines we have today? Competitive edge. The technology behind this motor is more than just efficient. It gives the motor a real edge in the market. One of the biggest advantages is that it helps cut down on fossil fuel use and lowers harmful emissions. Because it uses water as fuel, this motor doesn't produce any pollution or greenhouse gases that make climate change worse. This makes it a much more sustainable choice for things like transportation and generating energy. This motor is a big leap forward in both technology and protecting the environment. It proves we can build machines that are not only more powerful and efficient, but also better for the planet. What makes this motor special is that it runs on water. Traditional motors burn fossil fuels and release harmful gases, but this one works cleanly and efficiently. What's really important here is that we can focus on environmental issues without sacrificing how well the motor performs. The sustainable design is a game changer for the environment. By using water, it seriously cuts down on the need for fossil fuels and reduces harmful emissions. That means we can keep things like transportation and energy production going without making climate change worse or adding to air pollution. This is a huge step toward creating a cleaner, more sustainable future for everyone. If a lot of people start using this motor, the environmental benefits could be massive. Cleaner air, fewer greenhouse gases, and less damage to the environment from fossil fuel extraction. On top of that, The motor's design makes it more efficient and practical than regular motors. It's simpler and doesn't need as much maintenance. That means lower running costs and better reliability. So it works for a lot of different things. Whether it's powering small cars, big trucks, or even power plants, this motor's flexibility and eco-friendly design make it way better than traditional engines. It's also easy to use and cheaper to run, which could help more people switch to cleaner energy sources. Plus, this motor is better than other types, like those that use hydrogen. Storing and using water is a lot easier and safer than hydrogen, which needs special tanks that are high pressure and can be risky. Water, being a liquid, is much easier to handle, making the motor more practical for everyday use. This ease of storage and refueling means the motor can be used in lots of areas, from personal vehicles to big industrial systems. If this motor gets used on a large scale, it could really help society too. Cleaner air could mean healthier communities, with fewer people getting sick from breathing problems. This could lead to big savings in healthcare costs and more productivity from people being healthier. On top of that, setting a new standard for clean energy solutions like this motor might push even more innovations in sustainable technology. Revolutionizing cars with eco-friendly technology. The water motor is a great example of how technology and caring for the environment can come together. It shows that making progress and being sustainable don't have to be opposites. In fact, they can work side by side to achieve something amazing. This motor has the potential to completely change how cars are made, pushing the industry to rethink itself and aim for a future that's more eco-friendly. For a long time, car companies have focused on making faster, more powerful, and more luxurious cars. But this often meant ignoring the environment. Now, with Toyota introducing a motor that runs on water, we're seeing a big change. Toyota is proving that you can have cars that perform well and still be good for the environment. This could be the push the car industry needs to finally make sustainability a priority without losing the high performance people expect. What's cool is that this idea of a water-powered car isn't brand new. Back in 2008, a Japanese company called Genepax made big news when they said they had developed a car that could run on water instead of gas or diesel. This was a huge deal because it meant a cheaper and greener way to fuel cars. Genepax said they had created a system that could pull energy from water to power the car. The system, which they called a water-fueled car, used a special generator to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen would then be used as fuel, so basically the car ran on water. But even though this was a game-changing idea, it didn't really take off. There were a lot of technical and financial problems that got in the way. Toyota's water motor is taking what companies like Genepax started and building on it. Their version of the water motor is designed to solve the issues that held back earlier models. Toyota is using new technology and research to show that cars can still be high performance while being good for the planet. This brings together the old focus on speed and power with the new need for sustainability. The impact that Toyota's water motor could have on the car industry is huge. Once this technology grows and becomes more available, it could help cut down on the need for fossil fuels. This would not only help fight climate change, but also reduce the harm that comes from drilling and using fossil fuels. If Toyota's motor is successful, it could also push other car companies to start working on their own green technologies. This could speed up the shift toward eco-friendly cars, opening up a future where car companies focus on both performance and protecting the planet. Now, this pursuit hasn't been without scrutiny. Now, when experts checked out the water-powered car from Genepax, they found something strange. It looked like the car wasn't really running on just water. Instead, it seemed like it was using a special material called metal hydride to generate energy. This meant the car's claims weren't entirely accurate. Some people started doubting what Genepax said, because the company didn't provide any solid scientific proof to back up their claims. Scientists and other experts raised some valid concerns. For example, scientists pointed out that getting energy from just water is nearly impossible. Water is a very stable substance. Its molecules are held together by strong bonds, so you need a lot of energy to break these bonds and split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Imagine trying to snap a really tough twig. It's not easy and requires a lot of effort. Water already contains energy within its molecules, so you need to add more energy to break it apart. It's like trying to get money from an empty wallet. It just doesn't work. Most ideas for water-powered cars involve a process called electrolysis, which splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. Then you combine these elements again to release energy. But here's the catch. The first law of thermodynamics says that the energy needed to split the water will always be equal to the energy you get back when you combine it again. The second law of thermodynamics makes it even harder. When you convert energy from one form to another, some of it gets lost. So even if you manage to split and recombine the water molecules, you'll always end up with less useful energy than you put in. It's like baking a cake and ending up with fewer ingredients than you started with. Something doesn't add up. Now let's talk about a certain man called Stanley Meyer. From Stanley Meyer to modern claims. The saga of Stanley Meyer is a wild one that captures the imagination, but it also serves as a cautionary tale about the allure of revolutionary technology. Back in the 1980s, Meyer grabbed headlines with a bold claim. He had invented a dune buggy that could run solely on water. His claims were dramatic and enticing, but they were also highly dubious. Meyer's explanations for his invention were a bit like a roller coaster ride, full of twists and turns that left people confused. One day, he would explain that he had replaced the traditional spark plugs in his engine with something he called a water splitter. This device, he said, could break down water into its basic components. The next day, Meyer would switch gears and talk about a so-called magical fuel cell. According to him, this fuel cell used something called electrical resonance to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, almost as if he were describing a contraption from a sci-fi novel. The idea sounded intriguing, like something out of a futuristic dream, but like many dreams, it lacked solid grounding in reality. The problem was that Meyer's claims never stood up to scrutiny. Independent experts and scientists tried to verify his technology, but no concrete proof was found. In fact, his claims were so far-fetched that they were deemed as credible as unicorns. Meyer's story took a dramatic turn in 1996 when he was found guilty of gross and egregious fraud in an Ohio court. This court ruling essentially put a nail in the coffin of his water-powered car claims, marking a bitter end to his high-flying promises. The story of Meyer didn't just fade away, it left a lingering cloud of skepticism. Critics began comparing other water-powered car claims to Meyer's tale, suggesting that they were similarly unrealistic. The comparison was particularly sharp for Genepac's, whose claims about water-powered cars seemed to echo the same kind of unsubstantiated excitement. Before Toyota made its splash with its water motor, another company, Hydrogen Technology Applications, stepped into the limelight. In 2002, they introduced a device they called Aquagen. At first, they pitched it as a safer alternative for oxyacetylene welding, which was already a bold claim. But things took a turn when they boldly announced that their device could actually power a car using just water. This was like adding fuel to the fire of excitement and skepticism. They threw around terms like magnegacies and magnecules, which sounded like they were lifted straight from a spell book rather than a scientific handbook. The problem was, as with Meyer's claims, none of these fancy theories were supported by solid scientific evidence. Hydrogen Technology Applications founder, Dennis Kleen, added another layer of intrigue by claiming that they were in discussions with a major car manufacturer and even the US government to use their technology in Hummers. This kind of talk stirred up both excitement and skepticism in equal measure. People were eager to see if this could actually revolutionize car power, but over time, it became clear that the claims were probably overstated. The company's narrative shifted. They stopped claiming that their device could make a car run solely on water. Instead, they began marketing it as a tool to enhance hydrogen fuel, making cars more fuel efficient. Genesis, World Energy's failed promises. In the same year as the dramatic events surrounding Stanley Meyer, another company, Genesis World Energy, created quite a stir with their grand claims. They announced they had developed a device that could extract energy from water by splitting it into hydrogen and oxygen, then recombining them. This idea was touted as revolutionary, and it had investors flocking with their wallets wide open. The the company boldly declared their device was ready for the market and started collecting funds from eager backers. But there was something off about the whole operation. Despite the hype and excitement, not a single device from Genesis World Energy ever hit the market. This led to growing suspicions that the company was more interested in financial gain than in actually developing a working product. The doubts were confirmed when, in the years that followed, the company made an even wilder claim: their technology could now power cars. This new pitch was framed as a groundbreaking energy solution, but it soon unraveled as nothing more than a scam. The man behind this elaborate deception was Patrick Kelly. In 2003, Kelly faced justice for his actions. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for theft and was ordered to repay a substantial sum of $400,000 to the investors he had defrauded. The scandal left a lasting impression, reinforcing the idea that Kelly's grand claims about his device were nothing more than empty promises. The tale of Tushara Priyamal Edirisinghe. In 2003, the same year that Genesis World Energy's scam came to light, another remarkable claim emerged from Sri Lanka: Tushara Priyamal. Edirisinghe made headlines with an astonishing assertion. He had driven a car an impressive 190 miles using just 3 liters of water. According to Edirisinghe, his car was powered by a special technology that split water into hydrogen and oxygen, which were then used as fuel. This claim caught the eye of Sri Lanka's Prime Minister, Ratnasiri Wickramanayake, who offered his full support to help bring this technology to market. However, the story took a dark turn. Just months after capturing national attention, Edirisinghe was arrested on suspicion of fraud. It turned out his claims about the water-powered car were grossly exaggerated, and he had been misleading investors. Fast forward to 2008, and the world of water-powered cars was still alive and kicking. An inventor from Indonesia, Arianto Missile, claimed to have created a device called Incuba that could transform water into hydrogen fuel to power motorcycles. According to Missile, his device could travel a staggering 500 kilometers using just 1 liter of water. This would have been a major breakthrough for both transportation and energy. But then, things took a bizarre turn. A few months after his big announcement, Missile claimed that major car companies like Lamborghini, Ducati, and Ferrari were interested in his invention. He also said he was willing to sell his device for a hefty 15 billion rupiahs. At the same time, he expressed frustration with the Indonesian government and a government agency, accusing them of trying to sabotage his efforts. The reasons for his anger were unclear, but it seemed he wanted to pursue his invention independently, without government interference. Arianto made some big claims, but not everyone believed him. Scientists from the National Research and Innovation Agency in Indonesia were skeptical. They said his device seemed to break the basic rules of physics and chemistry, making it seem impossible. They also found that the major car companies might not have been as interested as Arianto claimed. This made people question if Arianto was telling the truth. Back to Toyota. Toyota isn't just using hydrogen for cars. They're also putting it in big trucks, buses, boats, and even in power plants. They've made good progress but want to improve further. Their goal is to make hydrogen fuel cheaper, longer lasting, and better for the environment. Toyota also plans to release a new and improved fuel cell system by 2026. This system should increase the range of their vehicles by 20% and cut costs by 30% compared to current models. If they succeed, this could be a major step forward in finding eco-friendly fuel alternatives. Toyota's commitment to hydrogen technology shows there are other innovative options besides electric vehicles. What do you think about this? Let us know in the comments section. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest videos. While you're still here, click the video on your screen to see more interesting content like this one.